Last time out on BronxNet, we featured legendary author Robert Daley. Here's part two of that interview.
When you talk about the cruel sport, I mean, as we mentioned, 165 photos in that book. And, they were captured with anywhere from the 35 millimeters to 800 millimeters. You had these three Nikons, different lenses that you were using. And one of the articles that I read about you talking about that particular book, you said that you began to imagine converting your feelings about motor racing into images. What a wonderful remark.
Into pictures. Yeah. Could I make pictures that conveyed to the reader what I felt? So I tried. And it was the idea of winding up with a couple of hundred photos. What am I going to do with them? Well, maybe I can make a book and I'll call it The Cruel Sport. Well, looking back, I don't see any work. I just see the fun of laying all those photos out on the floor and deciding where they would go, how they would go, and then what I would say about them. I had to have captions. Well, captions are a great chance to write essays that are 6 or 8 lines long, which is fun to do. You don't even think about essays in that sense. But what can you say about the photo that's as interesting as the photo is? That is, if it's a good photo. Well,
some of those great photographs are actually on the wall behind you there in your den. And one of those central figures is located, I don't know if the camera will get it there in the corner there, but one of the central figures of the cruel sport is Phil Hill, the only American-born F1 champion. And what an incredible central character to that story. And I know he was kind of one of the people that you felt really helped you capture those early years of Formula One.
To get that close to somebody who lays his life on the line 4 or 5 times a week, what is he thinking? What is he doing? And Phil talked about it all the time. One of the things he said to me one day, I asked him, why did he drive a road car? It was a 203 Peugeot. Why, people expect to see you in something racy. And his answer was, if I get out of this alive, I don't want to have blown all my money on fancy cars. Now, wow, anybody who talks that way, and he talked that way all the time, at least to me. And I often said, if anything ever happened to Phil, I could never go near a car race again. Phil died in bed at 83.
I was going to say, he ended up living a long life and, of course, having such an illustrious career himself. And he actually, ends up driving the stunt car for the film, which the book is the basis of, and that's Grand Prix. I love having all these little things here on the set with me in the mornings. But the book, of course, the basis for this great film. You have Grand Prix, and then, of course, this forgotten F1 film. I actually have an advertisement for it here. It's part of my collection, and that's Day of the Champion, what would have been starring Steve McQueen. And from what I gather, Steve wasn't very happy with you that Grand Prix was made instead of Day of the Champion.
I got a call from Frankenheimer in California. He was going to make a car racing picture, and would I come out to California? He couldn't make it without me, et cetera. He really laid it on. So I went out to California and we talked about it. And I called up my agent and I said, look, he wants me, et cetera. He's going to pay so much. What do you think? And the agent says, well, there's something we haven't been telling you yet. Steve McQueen is after you too. So I never talked to McQueen or his people. I just ignored that possibility. Turns out that something from them, a contract or something, was in my hotel room in Malibu at that time. Anyway, I said, well, never mind McQueen. Frankenheimer is my guy. He wants to do exactly the film I want to do. Now, in fact, he didn't, but I thought he did. And then I remember going to the Grand Prix de Monaco the following May, and McQueen was there, and I was told he was looking for me, and he was mad. So I spent my time ducking Steve McQueen. I've never met him to this day.
That's just such a great story. And we talk about all of these legends, Bob. I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention your family name and the legend of your father, really. I mean, your father ends up winning. Arthur Daley wins a Pulitzer Prize, investigative reporting, this amazing career at the New York Times, the only job that he ever had. That column, Sporting of the Times, in 115 years, in the first 115 years of the Times, there were only 2 sports columnists, and your father was one of them. He spent 47 years at the paper, and from what I gather, it's estimated that he wrote over 20 million words in his career. Can you speak about your dad and what he meant to you?
My father would sit at the end of the dining room table with his biting on the thumb of his on the fingernail of his thumb, and we all realized he wasn't with us at all. He was writing tomorrow's column. When he won the prize, he got a telegram from Red Smith saying, "Congratulations. From now on, only one column a day." In those days, the columnists, Red Smith also, they wrote every single day. And if you've ever tried to write a sports column, at the end of about 3, you are written out, and they had 4 more to go that week, with 7 more the following week, etc. Anyway, my father only gave me tips one time. I remember him telling me that in the first paragraph, you have to put who, what, why, when, and where. And then we never talked about it again. And somehow I knew how to do this. And the fact that I was able to do all that I did, my father never lifted a finger to help me, but he opened all the doors without even trying. So I had luck over everybody else who might have been trying what I was trying.
You know, and like I said earlier in the interview, Bob, I mean, just this idea of the family being so linked to the Bronx, because your dad also attended Fordham Prep and Fordham College at that time, and so did you and your brother. I mean, just a remarkable legacy at Fordham.
Yeah, there was no chance we'd ever go anywhere else. I was a fairly hot swimmer as a boy, and was getting asked by colleges, was I interested, et cetera. Yale was one of them. And I never had a chance to go anywhere else. I mean, my parents never even considered it. I was going to Fordham, which I did. And especially Fordham Prep, it was a priceless experience looking back. Fordham College less so. At the time, I criticize Fordham these days. At the time, they never even mentioned the arts of any kind. But instead of that, we had something like 6 or 8 hours a week of Thomistic philosophy, which is stupid. It's one philosophy among so many, and the Catholic Church of Fordham took it as Catholic philosophy, and you didn't even have the right to read any other. Anyway, my point is that the Fordham of my day was wrongly focused, I think. How it is today, I don't know. One of the teachers that they hired just before I graduated was a former Southern Methodist quarterback named Robert Brown, and he was a Protestant convert to Catholicism. Anyway, that made him okay to hire by Fordham. But he came in and started teaching the boys, me included, about Hemingway and Fitzgerald and others. And I was so grateful to him in later years, because that was never going to happen in the first several years of my Fordham education. I hope it happens widely now. But what a breath of fresh air, this foreigner, so to speak, somebody from Dallas, a Protestant, born a Protestant, and a former football player as well. Perfect. That's a good teacher for kids.
In closing this interview, I wanted to throw out one more quote. This, of course, comes from the legendary Carroll Shelby in Ford versus Ferrari. There's a point at 7,000 RPM where everything fades, the machine becomes weightless, just disappears, and all that is left is a body moving through space and time. 7,000 RPM, that's where you meet it. You feel it coming, it creeps up on you, close in your ear, asks you a question, the only question that matters. Who are you? So in closing this interview, Bob, who is Robert Daley?
Wow. I don't know. I thought I've revealed myself as much as I can in the last few minutes. I met Shelby, I had known him for a long time, but I met him at a dinner not long ago, many years after. And somebody brought up the cruel sport, and Shelby said, that was our Bible. And I was so pleased, so pleased.
Well, Bob, I really appreciate you taking the time. It's been an honor. I definitely have an answer to that question. And to me, you are the most interesting man in the world. I appreciate you taking time with us this morning.
Thanks, Bobby.